if I wanted to make it the simplest possible, I'm a rocket plumber. I make fluid go from one place to another with all the piping and valves and different things, except I'm not delivering water, I'm delivering rocket propellant. You have to have like an entire economy built around like space travel and all that stuff, and how hard it is to like, we're putting like hundreds of kilograms of stuff in space. I think when you put that all together and you say we have good quality engineers right now working on very capable rockets, and I was able to get a seat on one of them, yeah, I'd probably take it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Last Zebra podcast. I'm your host, Ugo Ezama. As always, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and engage. I have the pleasure of meeting someone that's actually living out a dream of mine, a childhood dream of mine, Matthew Melerine. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to have you. Thank you.
Yeah, how would you introduce yourself? Like, what do you do, and why am I like super geeked out about this?
Sure. Yeah. So, what I do is work in the aerospace industry. My job is a fluid systems engineer, but had many roles over the past 10 plus years in the aerospace industry. So, really, my job is all about putting cool stuff in space.
I think first of all, it's fascinating because one, you're in New Orleans in the aerospace industry, which is something that I'm pretty sure not many people even are aware of. That's somebody that works in the field that you work in.
Definitely.
Has any sort of deep affiliations here. How does one, because you're from New Orleans.
Yes.
Okay. How did you get into this field?
Yeah, absolutely. So, started, born and raised here in New Orleans and went to college at the University of New Orleans. Had a really good opportunity at the end of my college career to go work with Lockheed Martin. Mm-hmm. There's a space facility not too far from here in New Orleans. It's the Michoud Assembly Facility. The most famous things they're probably known for is the big orange tank on the space shuttle. That's where that was assembled and built. So Lockheed Martin has a little building in there, and they worked on the Orion space capsule there. And part of my college extracurriculars was to work with those engineers and study just different metallurgy and friction stir welding. So fancy way of saying we welded some metal together with friction. But yeah, so I got into that kind of as an elective through college, and really it opened my eyes to like what the aerospace industry is. When I got to the point in my career where I really knew that I wanted to go do aerospace engineering more deeply, you're totally right. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities around here. So the closest facility around here is either the Michoud Assembly Facility, which is mostly manufacturing, engineering, and stuff like that, or Stennis Space Center, which is right across the border, on the border of Louisiana and Mississippi. Mm-hmm. That is the world's premier rocket engine test facility in the world. Not a lot of people know about it, or if you're not in the know, you really don't know where it is because it's acres and acres back into a swampland.
Right.
So when you're passing it on the interstate, it just looks like a little exit sign that says NASA facility. But really it's, anything that goes to space goes through the south here. It goes through NASA facility to get to space. So that was my next opportunity, was to work there, live in New Orleans, and commute about an hour every day to the facility where I could test rockets. So applied for jobs there, kind of out of college, and got lucky, got a really interesting position doing rocket propulsion testing with the Rocket Propulsion Test Group for NASA. And been living that dream ever since.
Dude, that's amazing. It is a genuine surprise to me. Every time I'm driving to Florida, seeing the NASA facility sign, you just assume that because it's, here and, the southern state, that it's probably not some big fancy, but when you say premier, you mean literally,
Yeah.
this is where rockets are tested.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I've had chances to work on programs like the SLS, which is NASA's big rocket that's supposed to bring us back to the moon. We've tested, some insane projects there. We've done nuclear testing there, nuclear propulsion testing. Private companies from all around the world book time on these test cells to come back to these spots. And, they have test objectives that they want to hit. And the infrastructure to test all these things. You're testing these rockets that are meant to go to space. You have to hold these things down to the Earth while they're testing because they want to fly.
Right.
It takes some serious infrastructure to do that. So NASA built a world-class facility that people can come to and test, NASA's own rockets, as well as private companies can come into and test their own rockets there as well. So like I said, it's the premier facility. Most people, when they think of rocket testing, think of NASA Stennis Space Center.
That's awesome. When were you first enamored? Like, when were you first like, no, this is definitely what the aerospace, is, particularly as an engineer, this is what I want to do. How old were you, and what was that moment that it kind of just clicked? Like, this is it. Yeah,
I think when I was in high school, there was a moment where, you go back to when I was in high school, there was like the big STEM push, get more kids involved in science and technology and engineering. So we had some classes that were geared towards showing kids what engineering is all about. That was I didn't grow up really thinking about engineering or doing anything like that. I just knew I kind of liked math and science.
Yeah,
I knew I liked taking things apart and investigating, asking why or how do we build things? How do things work? When I got into that first elective class, it really opened my eyes and said, wow, like the whole world is engineering. Everything in this place is just, and engineers had their hands on it to build it and make it. So that's when the engineering kind of clicked, was in high school. And then when I got into college and I was doing all these, friction stir welding with Lockheed Martin and doing those kind of programs, it was just almost like a flood of information. Like the floodgates had opened of just the community. I kind of like broken into it, and I got kind of overwhelmed almost by like how many different disciplines there are in engineering alone, just in aerospace. So there's everything from how do you make the materials to how does the rocket work to avionics and electronics, and you can go on and on for different topics. And that's when I was like, man, this is just such a broad field. You think aerospace engineers kind of just do one thing, they make rockets fly and stuff like that, but really there's teams and teams of people that are built to stand these companies up. And when I got experience with that and I got to see that, I was like, man, I can really dive into one of these companies and take a role on. And you go to these conferences and you go to different events where these companies come and reach out to you and show you what they do and how they're pushing the frontier. And I think it was a moment where you realize space is an amazing frontier to push, because it doesn't only have its own goal. It doesn't have its own singular purpose of just going to space.
Right.
It's building the building blocks along the way and building the technologies to get to space. And everyone benefits from that.
That's right.
Every piece of technology that we create along the way, we can use in different areas of everyday life that we have. So I think when those wheels started turning and I started seeing like the world connect, like all the puzzle pieces connect, I knew it was it. That's where I wanted to put all my energy and time into.
What's a general misconception or misunderstanding that people generally have about aeronautic engineering?
Yeah. I get a lot of people that think it's all about just making a rocket, right? Like you see the fancy piece on the end that has just your typical Bell rocket shape, and there's hot fire coming out the end of it, and people look at that and go, wow, that's aerospace engineering. But there's so much more that goes into it that people don't really even think about. Like when the rocket goes to space, how do we even talk to it? How do we talk to a rocket when it goes to space? There's a whole group of people who their whole dedicated focus is just to make sure we can read signals. Communications. There's so many groups that I think people, when they think aerospace engineers, were making one particular product, but it's so much larger than what anybody really can imagine. And every field, and I literally mean every field, from thermal sciences, biology, we're dealing with, how do we put humans in space? There's a human aspect to this where we need doctors and biologists and scientists to say, well, what happens when we put a human in space, and what happens to their body? What can they stay there for long periods of time? Right. Can they be exposed to this much radiation? Can they survive these G-forces and events that are going to be taking them to space? That's all medical research that is done in the name of aerospace. So I think when people say aerospace engineering, their view is very narrow and we just make rockets. But aerospace engineers can literally touch any subject.
When we first met, and we met through your sister, shout out to Sarah. We met and we were diving a little bit into your background, and you didn't at first start with aerospace engineering.
That's right.
You were in was it in the oil field?
Oil and gas, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it about that? First of all, how did you get into that in the first place? And then what was the turning point? What was the change that made you say, you know what, I need to go back to what it is I was originally passionate about?
Absolutely. I was, the end of my college career was when those kind of internships took place for the aerospace stuff. But right out of college, I did take a job in the oil and gas industry. And it was for the exact reasons that you were talking about. It's really hard to come across really good opportunities in the aerospace industry down here. A lot of the jobs are tied to government funding and just the general economics of what the space industry is doing at the time. Back 10, 12 years ago, the space industry was just totally different. It was total different economic space that it was in.
Pun intended.
Yeah, definitely. But it was just a different world. So, unfortunately life happens and you have to make some business decisions on what you want to do and how to keep your life moving in the right direction. So, put the feelers out there for everything down here in Southern Louisiana. The biggest machine there is down here is the oil and gas industry.
That's right.
So I ended up with a really great company who taught me a lot of lessons. I was an operations engineer, so that meant I was working hands-on with the guys kind of on the ground, optimizing processes, learning how valves worked. There was really just being a field technician, but looking at it through an engineer's lens. So I think that really ended up preparing me really well for the next couple of jobs that I did, which was still a lot of hands-on work of like building the infrastructure for aerospace testing. So, there's always a plan that we don't know about. And it showed up that way. I went through the oil and gas industry for roughly about 2 years. That's when oil and gas was hot. Oil was hundreds, $1 a barrel. We were making money hand over fist. And then all of a sudden it just crashed. Right. The bottom fell out and, my company got bought up, wanted me to move to Lafayette or Houston, and all these different things were going on. Layoffs were happening and stuff like that. So reached out to some old buddies in the college sphere and said, hey man, are there any jobs opening up in the aerospace industry? And they were like, I think we got one position open for you. You might want to apply for it. So the timing worked out like perfect. Interviewed for that position and it was literally a dream position. Like this was the rocket propulsion testing group. So it was like testing the actual rocket engines, and I was in love with it ever since.
Were there any parts of your previous job in oil and gas that you feel prepared you for being an aerospace engineer? Yeah,
I think engineering fundamentals, no matter like what area you go into, is important. So the physics doesn't change no matter where you go. So I think it's important just for even any engineer in any field to understand that those first couple of years, understanding a good foundation of first principles engineering, like, everybody wants to have like a cheat sheet of like, how do we, quick hand this calculation, or how do we make these assumptions? And I think a good way to look at it is if you start there and you start making the assumptions in the beginning, you're always going to make those assumptions. And when you get to the very complex problems on the end, you're a senior engineer, some of those assumptions begin to break down. Some of those things that are very, you take for granted in the beginning of your process can really just, you're up against a really tough problem. And it's because those basic assumptions that we have in everyday life start to break down. So I think learning a good first principles engineering pass of like, do the calculation the right way it's supposed to be done from the very first step, and go through it step by step methodically. And it's tedious, and sometimes it's you feel like you're maybe doing something where you could go faster, but you're building a foundation. Everything is built on a foundation your entire career, so make sure that foundation's like rock solid.
How long have you been doing aerospace now?
Aerospace for about 10 years now.
If you could go back to when you first went to, because it was Stennis, right?
That's right.
If you could go back to when you first went to the Stennis Space, is that what it's called? Stennis Space Center. I was going to say space station, but that wouldn't make sense. But if you could go back to when you first started at Stennis Space Center, and you were to run into your old self, what advice would you give yourself as a young man, embarking on this dream of all dreams?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that often as well. I think, people tell you, like you said, when you get into the first couple of years of your career, it's like drinking through a fire hose. You just can't physically take in all of the information. You need to be a sponge and try and absorb, but there's just no way you can absorb it all. I think the nuance in that of like drinking through a fire hose is that on the other end of the fire hose, there's people giving you information. There's so many people around you that are really, delivering this information to you. I had really good mentors. I had really good people around me that took time out of their day, senior engineers that were extremely busy, juggling multiple projects, who took time out of their day to pick up the junior engineer, drag him along to a meeting, involve him in something he has no business involving himself in, and expose me to different things. And I don't think in the beginning of my career I appreciated that enough. I think really appreciating that fact of like when people are giving you information and when people are sharing their skills with you, really take it to heart and try and understand fully what they're trying to explain to you, because those lessons that they are teaching you are lessons that they learned long ago that were probably from mistakes that they made, and they're trying to guide you around these pitfalls, or guide you around things that may trip you up as you come across the same problems that they came across. So everybody talks about how you want to like crawl first, then walk, then run,
then fly.
I think part of that is you can get to running faster if you know where the potholes are. If you know where every pitfall is, you won't make those mistakes. So really taking the time to sit down with those guys who want to impart this knowledge on the younger generation, because aerospace is a field where there's a lot of senior engineers out there, and unfortunately, the budget cuts with NASA and all that stuff, we're losing a lot of very senior engineers, and we can't always take that for granted. We can't just say that these people are going to be around forever who built the space industry that we're literally standing on the shoulders of the giants that are out here today. When those giants speak, listen.
You pay attention.
Yeah.
I think, the saying, it's not rocket science. So there is in pop culture, there's a level of intelligence and brilliance that's automatically attached to aerospace engineer, rocket science, which is understandable. I think especially given the breadth of knowledge that's required, the breadth of institutions and the different kind of occupations that come together to pull it off.
Right.
So it's not just physics or physicists and maths and engineering and machines. What has surprised you the most in your experience so far that really caught you off guard in a pleasant way?
Sure.
Or a genuine surprise, like, I did not see this coming. What has surprised you the most about your experience thus far in the last decade?
Absolutely. I think when you talk about like the brilliance of people that are in the aerospace industry and stuff, there's definitely a bar that has to be met to be a quality level engineer and all that stuff. But like I said before, there's so many people that it takes to build an aerospace company, to build the foundation of what we're talking about. And there's unsung heroes everywhere in the aerospace industry. Logistics managers who are making sure you have parts ordered, technicians who are actually doing the physical work. These guys don't have engineering degrees, or they don't have advanced physics degrees and stuff like that, but they are as integral to the company, even more so sometimes, because they are handling critical hardware. They are the literal hands that take your paper design, your baby that you made, in the middle of the night where you were coming up with this crazy idea, and they are taking that and breathing it into life.
Right.
So I think that that part of the aerospace industry where it's every walk of life, it is everyone that wants to contribute to the aerospace industry, they absolutely can. You just have to want to go do it. Find a place or a application where you have a particular skill set, and I guarantee you there's a aerospace company who's looking for that skill set. So I think it's just knowing that there's walks of life of people that come into the aerospace industry and contribute to push the goals of humanity for space travel further.
When you say propulsion engineer, I think the general population probably has an idea of what you do.
Sure.
And when you're introducing yourself and it comes up, what do most people think you do versus what do you actually do?
Yeah, very cool. So in very simple terms, if I wanted to make it the simplest possible, I'm a rocket plumber. That's what I do. I make fluid go from one place to another with all the piping and valves and different things, except I'm not delivering water, I'm delivering rocket propellant.
That's an analogy if I've ever heard one. A rocket plumber.
Rocket plumber.
Wow.
So, space propulsion is like all about delivering fluid at a very specific condition and a very specific fluid to mix these things together at the end of a rocket engine, add a little spark, and get hot gas coming out of the end of it. So I think that's the easiest way to for people to visualize it is it's very simple. Like when you're talking about an architecture for how you're building a house and the plumbing layout of a house, you have your hot water heater tanks, and the hot water goes from there to your faucet, and you have the valves, which are your little handles that give you hot water, and out comes the water of the faucet. We do the exact same thing, but there's a rocket engine at the end of it.
I mean, I feel like you could say anything and then there's a rocket engine at the end of it, and everyone will be like, yeah, that sounds really, really cool.
Yeah,
that sounds hella cool.
Yeah.
It sounds like, especially in the last 10 years, which is the time that you've been, you've invested in this career, that a lot has changed. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out the influence, it seems, of, say, SpaceX, Elon Musk, Blue Origin, all of these kind of private entities, private companies that seem to be helping to push the space interest or the frontier, the space frontier, pushing that boundary. And Elon Musk is famously being credited for helping to reduce the cost of rockets. And what is the general sense of that whole private endeavor into space from people working in it and who have been working in it for a very long time? What is the general sense of that, and how do you guys I'm sure it's a world of cohabitation where everybody just kind of has to collaborate because of how intense that endeavor is.
Indeed.
What is the general sense of SpaceX, Blue Origin, all of these Virgin Galactic, all of these private companies that are now interested and investing into space fair, if you will?
Absolutely. I think the space dynamic has changed, like the ecosystem of what it means to be a space company and go to space has changed. It used to be that was NASA's domain, right? Like if you wanted to go to space, you had to go to NASA to go to space. And now we have private companies, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and then we even have smaller companies. A company I work for, Relativity Space, Firefly just went public a couple of days ago, actually.
Firefly?
Yeah, Firefly. They're a great company that's doing space launch. They're the first private company to land a lunar rover on the moon.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, huge deal. I think they just went IPO a couple of days ago and raised like $1 billion. So
why do I not know this?
Space news is hard to come by, man. Sometimes it's not as flashy as people think it is. It's the big, SpaceX and NASA and political stuff. But when we do like real science achievements, it's sometimes gets covered up a little bit. But anyway, back to the economics of space, or the way it looks now. Before, like I said, it was NASA, and you had to ask NASA permission to go to space and do all this stuff. And now we have private companies that are going to space all the time. I think in general, the space industry is happy that happens. NASA has done so much of the legwork for us. It's all public information. It's all records that we can go look up. You can go do an archives request for how the space shuttle was built and get some documents and stuff like that. And there's, engineering records that you can look at. I didn't
know it was all public record.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely going to be some that's restricted based on ITAR and different regulations and stuff like that. But there's books written all the time, engineering textbooks that reference all of this NASA technology that was built. And we're the benefactors of it. The private industry is the benefactors of it because we have all of this information at our fingertips. And NASA shares that information with us, and then we get to use it in whatever way we see fit. So, like SpaceX mission is to get to Mars and colonize Mars. Blue Origin's doing space tourism and eventually wants to do more, deeper space stuff and lunar, cohabitations and stuff like that. I think in the aerospace industry right now, it's everyone wants to see everyone win. When one of us loses, it's a hit on the aerospace industry. It's a mark on the record of the aerospace industry. So when we see SpaceX put a rocket into space or do an orbital test or something like that, and the rocket fails, I truly believe there's not many people in the aerospace industry that are saying like that was great or happy that it failed or anything. We're all rooting for every single person in the aerospace industry because where they push the frontier, that means we'll also benefit from that. We'll bring more people to the space industry. We'll create more buzz about it and get more people interested in it. And anytime we can push the frontier, even just a little bit, SpaceX does another cool test. One of these small companies, like my company, Relativity Space that I work for, we 3D printed rockets. We were the first company to put a 3D rocket in space, a 3D printed rocket in space. Just moving the needle a little bit every time is a fantastic thing for the whole aerospace industry. Not just, obviously the company's going to benefit the most that does it, but now that technology we know is proven. We know is something that is no more an unknown. We can leverage it in different areas, and other companies can leverage it to maybe solve a problem that they're having. And it's all these building blocks that every company builds one step at a time, that we all collectively
benefit from.
Yeah.
Movies have a strange relationship with space and the physics of space. What are some of the peeves, pet peeves when you're watching a movie? I watched Superman the other day. Great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
I watched Superman and Fantastic Four the other day.
Yeah.
And or even The Mandalorian or any Star Wars movie or show. And I can imagine as a novice physicist, I don't even think that's fair to physicists, but someone who has some interest in science.
Sure.
Certain things tickle me, like, you know, obviously no sound in space,
right,
etc. You don't hear the pew pew pew
That's right.
when the laser bumps out from the starship. But what are some pet peeves of yours when you're watching movies? You're like, it really wouldn't happen like that, or and then what movie or movies have you seen that have stayed true? To the science of space.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Interstellar was like the most incredible space movie ever made. Masterpiece. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it was great. You know, they had like scientists come and do a lot of the like physics behind what would it be like for time dilation with the black hole. And, you know, that's a huge story point about how time flowed differently when you were further or closer to a black hole. The imaging of a black hole, like the way they depicted it in the movie was just unreal. Yeah, it was so perfect. You know, when we got the like real pictures of the first black hole ever imaged, and you see like what they did with Interstellar, and you overlay the two and you look at it, you're like,
it's exactly the same.
They nailed it.
Yeah,
like the guys nailed it.
Yeah.
And it's because they used physicists, they used scientists, they used real data and said like,
this is what it would look like.
Yeah, we can make it some cool Hollywood wormhole effect or whatever, but they went and got the real data and said, no, let's spend the time actually to make this like real and you know, how far he was from the black hole. Let's do the real calculation to say, well, how fast would time actually move and stuff like that. So yeah, in terms of like what movie gets it right, Interstellar is awesome. I think in terms of like pet peeves, yeah, you hit on a few, like the no sound in space, you know, nobody can hear you scream in space. That's like the, you know, one funny thing. There's no sound. So if you ever got in like a laser gun battle in space, it would just be like silent lightning bolts flying around you and stuff. I think when it comes to like propulsion in space movies and stuff like that, you know, the only like pet peeves you end up having about it is like, that's a gigantic spaceship. How do they like get that? Like the infrastructure that you would need to make that spaceship and put it in space and like do all that stuff, you have to have like an entire economy built around like space travel and all that stuff, and how hard it is to like, we're putting like hundreds of kilograms of stuff in space, and then you see like the Death Star. It's this thing is more.
It's a planet. It's a moon.
You're right.
The size
this thing
of
is more mass than like the entire. You know, if you mind everything on Earth, it's more than the entire Earth has. So when you see things like that, you have to suspend disbelief for a little bit and say, yeah, okay, they didn't think about how much like iron ore you would have to dig out of the Earth and put into space to actually do that, and how many rocket launches per year do you need to do that? And it's hundreds of thousands of rocket launches, meaning you're launching a rocket every 15 seconds to space.
Right.
When maybe that's a little bit too nerdy, thinking about the logistics of space when you're watching a movie. But I think that those are like the funny little goofy things that I think what it does is it colors the perception of what like maybe the future of space looks like a little bit. We see like these giant galactic spaceships that warp in and out of space and stuff like that. And who knows, maybe we get there one day where we uncover some technology that gets us there. But I think the future of space technology and the future of like what real living in space, working in space, doing those things, those are real things that are going to happen soon. I think those are, we've got people today, companies that are being built around how do I build stuff in space? How do I make things in space? And I think that's probably an interesting thing to like ponder about, is if you had a civilization that was like truly as in space as they were down on Earth, what would that actually look like? And it's probably not like giant death destroyers that are zipping around the universe. It's manufacturing facilities and different technologies that enable life back on Earth rather than staying up there for extended periods of time.
What in the next 10 years, what do you see the future of space engineering and space ventures being like? What should we be paying attention to?
Man, there's all kinds of good stuff. The company that I currently work for, Benchmark Space Systems, they what our goal is to enable space transportation. So we move things around in space using rocket engines.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in a microcosm of I delivered a satellite to space.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to reposition it, how do I move it? Or if something's going to hit it, how do I avoid that?
Yeah.
Or if I want to bring it back to Earth, I want to safely deorbit it. Or even if it's a reentry vessel, something that's intentional to go to space and then has to come back, how do I do that? I think that's a frontier that's very important right now. Just being able to move and navigate in space. And it's not just, like I said, not just propulsion engineering. It's not just making a rocket engine that can do that. It's building the entire package of sensors and awareness and integrating different technologies, AI and other smart components that you can look at and say, how do I move in space, with purpose?
Right.
I think that's a really good frontier. I think there's a lot of other technologies that are being developed. Like I said, with space manufacturing, people are realizing that it's a little expensive to put things in space, but once you get things there, you can take advantage of a knob we never had back here on Earth, which is like gravity. It's amazing what you can do when you don't have to like hold things down or things weld together super easily, or you're already in the vacuum of space. So contamination from the air or pollution and stuff like that isn't a factor. I think manufacturing in space is like another big thing. Figuring out how people are going to survive long term, either in space or on the moon or on Mars, building these next generation habitats. So we have a very basic one right now. I say basic, it's literally one of the most advanced engineering projects ever, the International Space Station.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But there's other companies that are building right now the next generation of what that looks like. So how do people live in habitats that are either in space or eventually on the moon or eventually on Mars? Those things are being figured out like right now because they see a path to where SpaceX, NASA, all these other companies are making incremental progress every day towards that goal. And it's going to become a reality. And if we don't have all of the building blocks set up along the way, Mars travel is another great one. We're moving things like orbiters or rovers or things to do like small missions on Mars where we're trying to get images of the planet and stuff like that. But when we want to move like massive amounts of stuff, we want to move cargo, we want to move people, we need bigger rockets, we need things like the super heavy Starship that Elon's developed. There needs to be like a fuel station in space to like refuel if you want to do these kind of things. So figuring out how do you store fuel in space? It's super cold, really harsh environment. How do you like dock with a random space station up there and refuel it? It's not like you can just like pop out the door of the Starship and plug the gas nozzle in and start filling it up. It's got to be like all autonomous. So developing those technologies and stuff, there's hundreds more of like incremental technologies that we need to get where we all think we're going. But I think those are like the main frontiers that we're pushing right now.
A really cool question from producer Andy Lee, Mr. Lee. He had a good question. He was asking if it's been told that space is a vacuum, and the propulsion from jet fuel can't exist in a vacuum environment. Yeah. How does a rocket go? How does a rocket get you back to Earth from the moon?
Sure, absolutely. So in those terms, what we're guess to try and mold the question to answer it, what we're saying is a rocket is going to work here on Earth. When we take it into space, which is a vacuum, how does the principles of physics apply from one location to the other location? Mm-hmm. What a rocket engine does in principle is we take two fuels, usually an oxidizer and some hydrocarbon. So sometimes we use liquid hydrogen, liquid methane, octane, same stuff you put in your gas tank. Like we use those types of fuels. We mix them together, light it off, hot gas comes out the atmosphere. Common misconception is that gas is pushing on the atmosphere, and that's what gives you the lift that you need the atmosphere to push down against.
Right.
Newton's law of motion says that for every action,
there's an
equal and opposite reaction. So when you're designing a very efficient rocket engine, your goal is to throw as much mass out the back of the rocket engine as fast as possible, because mass times velocity gives you your momentum. Nothing to do with the air pressure, like the air resistance and stuff. All you need to do is throw stuff really, 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 really fast out the back. And if you throw it this way, you're going to go this way. So it's the same principle as like when we're talking about movies. You think about like when people get stranded in space and they're like, how do I get back to my space station or something? And they like take their little like backpack off and they throw it as hard as they can in one direction, and because the force of them throwing it in one direction is enough to move them in the opposite direction. So anytime you take mass, you move it in one direction, it'll move the other thing in the opposite direction, or you have to resist the force. Right. You have to be strong enough to resist the force. So I think that's, maybe not really a misconception, because there's definitely parts of rocket engine design that deal with like atmospheric pressure, because the hot gas that comes out of the rocket plume, it gets squeezed by the atmospheric pressure. We have like 15 pounds of pressure on us at any given moment here on Earth. When that gas expands, the pressure is actually squeezing it back down. So when you look at the plume of a rocket engine, we have overexpanded, perfectly like ideally expanded, and underexpanded nozzles. In an ideal condition, all of the gas is going directly straight down. The way to do that and the way to balance that is to design the rocket engine nozzle so that at the exit, it's equal to the atmospheric pressure. So it's coming out at the same pressure as the atmosphere around it.
So you don't have that expansion.
You don't have expansion or contraction. If the pressure is lower, then you'll have a squeeze, and you'll squeeze the exhaust plume. So the exhaust plume will look like it's kind of getting sucked in. If it's coming out higher, it pushes against the atmosphere. So it's going to expand against the atmosphere, and you're going to have this
you like lose thrust up,
because it's all about straightening the flow, right? We don't want to have it go outwards when it leaves the nozzle, because if it's tangential to the nozzle, you lose efficiency.
Right.
So the more straight down you can make the flow, better.
I think we just answered a couple of SAT questions right there. I'm pretty sure. If you couldn't now, you couldn't be a propulsion engineer now, what could you apply your knowledge outside of the aerospace engineer? What could you apply your knowledge to?
I think there's so many industries that rocket propulsion or propulsion engineering deals with that's so similar. One that comes to mind, just because I was in the oil and gas field, is a lot of like the operators that move, they move gas around or move the crude oil around from one machine to the next, and they're operating all these different valves and stuff. That's like rocket operations 101, right? We're controlling valves. We're trying to move liquid from one place to the other. We're monitoring the pressures and the temperatures and trying to see, is everything in the right condition? Is everything stable? I think that's one area that a lot of people, I see a lot of skill overlap. In other industries, I think like besides rocket propulsion, there's like aerospace engineering that is done for like airplanes and stuff like that. So I think working for companies like that, because you kind of understand the physics. If you want to go work for like a Boeing or something like that, the physics are the same. If you want to get even like smaller, like drone companies and stuff like that. Again, a lot of the physics and the problems that we deal with, like, some of the problems we have is like, how do you keep liquid on the bottom of the tank? Well, when a drone's doing these like aerobatic maneuvers and stuff like that, the same thing comes up. Like, how do you keep the fuel on the bottom of the drone so that it can do its maneuver or something like that? Those skills kind of transfer to those abilities. And then I would say outside of that, just having a good foundation in like math, physics, science, being able to apply that to like a real world scenario. I mean, there's
a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, that's what every engineer really does. If you're building buildings, you're using physics and science to figure out a problem. So if you're building bridges, if you're building, cities and underwater or under utility systems and things like that, when we do pipe stress or we do anything that's related to those fields, we're doing the same calculations that the civil engineer or the architect or somebody's doing. We're just doing it on a space pipe, and they're doing it on a pipe that's delivering water to our home. So I think those skills also transfer. You can just use good engineering principles to find any really engineering job and transfer it over.
What do you love more, space or the engineering?
Oof.
And if you had the opportunity right now to go to space, would you go? And if you could pick any of the celestial bodies to marvel at, so it's a 3-part question.
Sure.
Which one would you go to?
Wow. Okay.
So space or the building of things that bring you to space.
Yeah, I think I would have to say space first, because it's what got me into it's what led me to the engineering aspect.
Right.
So I think there's something like really profound about people thousands of years ago, like looking up into the stars and asking like really profound questions. I think about that often because you think about like who are the great thinkers of our time and who are the great engineers of their time and philosophers and things like that. And most times you can trace it back to they were looking at the stars or they were looking for answers of what's above us and the cosmos and things like that. So I think that's like an inherent human quality that most of us have, is to ask why and to ask how does this work. And I think the tool that enables us to do that is engineering, but that internal drive and passion for me comes from when I look up at the stars and say, man, I want to go there.
So you would want to go to space if you had the opportunity?
Yeah, it's a tough question, but I think if I had the opportunity, I would have to fully vet the opportunity and make sure,
because all the risks.
I know where all the bodies are hidden, where all the bad engineering might be, and stuff like that. So if I had the chance, I think I would do it. I think it's in today's day and age, it's engineers come such a long way for the development of space, and astronauts and people who go to space, super brave people. They know the risks when they're signing on to end up on that rocket and go to space. But I think when you look at being on the inside and you look at all the safety reviews and things that we do when we coordinate with NASA, the Space Force, all these different space entities that are making sure that we're following rules and regulations, and all of these things have been written by mistakes and things that have happened that, those potholes that we need to avoid along the way. I think when you put that all together and you say we have good quality engineers right now working on very capable rockets, and I was able to get a seat on one of them, yeah, I'd probably take it.
Where would you go?
Oh man, I think it'd be really cool to do Mars first, just for like the time period that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's just so curious. Like there's a new news article all the time on like, what did the rover find? And what is happening on Mars? Is there some hint of like, was there life previously on Mars or something like that? I think it'd be like super cool to be part of those like first people to go there. And, we can only do so much with robots. We can look with the cameras and we can do science analysis with some of the instruments that they have.
It's not the same.
It's not the same as having a person like pick up a Martian rock and like look at it. And humans are just like incredible at like pattern detection and looking at things that seem out of place and being able to spot certain things. And I think that like natural instinct to just explore and look at a place and go like, I wonder what's over there. This seems interesting. Yeah, I'd be like a kid in a candy store if I got to land on Mars and just, they said, go nuts, go walk around and tell us what you find. I think I'd be like a kid in a candy store.
The kid in me, obviously would have loved to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
I went down a more humble path. I became a doctor, physician.
Right.
How can, if I still wanted to be an astronaut,
sure,
today, I might be too old, but today, what can I find in aerospace engineering or aerospace industry at large, where I can, have the same overlap that we're talking about?
Yeah.
As a medical professional,
right.
And the aerospace industry.
Yeah, there's obviously the easy, straightforward answer is that we do like biological sciences all the time for astronauts. I'm sure there's medical professionals that are taking care of astronauts like around the clock to make sure that their diets, their bone structure, their nutrition, like everything that they're doing is like top notch to make sure that they're in the peak physical condition to go to space. So I think that's like the easiest answer, but the like cool answer of like, what are we doing today that's like new, that's like never been done in the industry before is we've got a recent opportunity to work with a really cool company called Aerospace, and they're doing space drugs. So they're doing pharmaceuticals manufactured in space and bringing those space drugs back down to Earth for research purposes. And there's actually, I'm not an expert on their pharmaceuticals, but one of the knobs that Varda's interested in is how do crystals form in space. So one of the things that we're benchmark, what my company does is allow them to go to space and come back to Earth. So the propulsion system behind it. But their vehicle, the thing that they use is like a whole platform that does autonomous drug manufacturing. So it's actually like in space right now, like flying above our head. There's a drug manufacturing facility like flying above our head right now.
That is crazy.
But yeah, so one of the knobs that you can turn when you're making drugs is, they form in these crystal structures. When you're here on Earth, you just have to take gravity into account. And that biases crystal growth, right? Like that makes crystals grow in a specific direction. There's other factors. There's like convection and things like that. Like, have you ever seen a candle in space? So if you light a candle here, you see the typical candle shape, right? It's kind of like round on the bottom and then comes up to a little flickery point.
Right.
When you do that in space, there's no gravity, there's no convection current
to shape it.
So it's a round ball. So it looks like a nice little sphere of fire.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And when people look at that and they go, well, what if we challenge the idea that we don't have to accept gravity and convection and all these things that we have to deal with here on Earth? What if we change it and we bring it up to space and we remove those variables, remove those factors out of the equation? Turns out you can make like really efficient medicines that way. You can, for a certain like yield of product, you can control the crystal growth the way that you want it to be grown. And again, I'm not an expert on the pharmaceuticals, but
it sounds really cool.
It's very interesting concept, and it's just one of those areas where, you know, you have that overlap of aerospace engineers went and built a product that can move you around in space and get you to space and launch you to space, and doctors and pharmacists and scientists took advantage of that opportunity and said, let's team up with this space company to do what we need to do in space. And when they bring the drugs back down, it's benefiting everybody, of us, right? Like we're getting cheaper, or drugs that are extremely difficult to manufacture and on Earth, maybe now we can make them for people who need them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just that great, like building blocks of frontiers and different disciplines, even seemingly unrelated, aerospace engineering and doctors coming together to like put those technologies together and make like fantastic products that we all benefit from.
That sounds really cool. I can't, maybe I can, but I can't wait to actually see. I wonder if it'll actually be labeled as such.
That's interesting.
Right?
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Like, would you as a marketing ploy, but people are so suspicious. Like if you said you made something in space,
drugs in space,
you know, they might think that, you know, you're trying to turn people into, you know, the lizard man or something like that.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like people are very, especially now where medicine and healthcare is concerned.
Right.
There's a lot of suspicion. I'm not sure how they will respond to knowing that it's made in space.
Drugs
so
made in space,
you might be able to cure something, but it's like, it's made,
nobody will take it.
It's made in space. You made that in space, man.
That's right.
You're trying to turn me into a mutant. What does a propulsion engineer do for fun?
Oh man, I think it's location based, because we're propulsion engineers exist all over the country, right? We huge area in like the San Francisco, Los Angeles area. Seattle has a huge area of engineers. Houston, Austin. Not too many propulsion engineers living down here in the South. So I think maybe I'm a rare case of what I love to do. But yeah, man, I love everything. Louisiana, crawfish boils, tailgates, football games, peak season right now. LSU season just kicked off. Saints season.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about
we don't have to talk about that.
We don't need to
yeah, you know, I think just growing up in the South, it's like family culture of just getting together with people, right? Like we have such a good friend group, such a big friend group, good families that we're all, you know, even our friends are close with each other's families and stuff like that. It always feels like you're walking into your own home, even though you're walking into one of your friend's house or something like that. So yeah, just getting the guys together, getting all the friends together, watching some football, eating some good Cajun food down here. I think that can't beat that.
You have what, 3 kids?
I have 3 kids, beautiful wife and 3 kids.
I love it. I love it. How old is your oldest?
My oldest is 6, Liam. And then I have a daughter who is 4, she's about to be 5, Stella. And then my youngest is 2, about to be 3 in December, Baylor.
Stella is a strong name.
Very, very. It suits her well too. She's a strong girl.
I love it. I love it. Do any of them know what you do?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
How do they feel about it?
Yeah. They love talking about it. They always, when we drive by and they see like anything that's like space related or like a little spaceship, or they see a commercial on TV and it's got like a planet in it, they're like, my dad put stuff in space and my dad does rockets and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's always fun. And I'm really passionate about that too. Like explaining to the younger community, because they're going to grow up in such a different world than we grew up in. They're going to grow up where space is just second nature to them. It's not going to be like when we grew up and, we saw a space shuttle launch every once in a while or something like that. I mean, SpaceX cranks out another rocket almost every other day, right? So by the time these kids grow up and they're getting ready to make their college choices and things like that, I think that the space industry is just going to be as common as like being a bridge engineer or a civil engineer or something like that. So it really makes me happy when like they're excited about it and they tell their friends about it, and then they're, the parents ask me like, do you really put stuff in space, or they're making up some stories? I'm like, no, I put stuff in space, and they get all excited about it. And then, we're having conversations about space. And I think getting that younger generation just excited about that and letting them know that like that opportunity is going to exist for you. And if you do good in school, you try hard, you study, you go, do everything that you can to better yourself, you're going to have a real chance to make a big difference in the world in the field of aerospace engineering. And that's, to me personally, that's like a big passion. I love imparting that wisdom, but for my kids specifically, like, of course I want them to always do whatever they want to do. And I would love to see them succeed in any area of life, but to see that they share kind of that same passion is just icing on the cake.
You mentioned imparting that joy and passion for space and aerospace. You used to have a podcast.
That's right.
We need to get you back on that podcast.
Right. We're reviving it. Tell
me a little bit about your podcast.
Sure.
And just hearing you talk now, I feel like that podcast needs to be back on the air.
Oh man, I really appreciate that. Yeah, the podcast is called the Over Your Head Podcast.
Ooh.
So it's everything that's over your head.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I got to give credit to my friends that the friend group came up with it. That's a good one. But so what I really want to do is take complicated space subjects, kind of like what we're doing here today, just talking about different areas of engineering and the misconceptions that we may have, or people think it's this really high barrier of entry of a professional career, and I really want to take these concepts and simplify them for people and explain it like in a way where it's like, hey man, I'm just a rocket plumber, right? Like I just do these things that you can do too. Don't be afraid to jump in. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to go seek out the knowledge. And I think, when I look at like some of the people that I like really aspire to that have done similar like aspects of like teaching science literacy and stuff like that, it really hits home for me, because I think that through science literacy, through empowering people with knowledge, you build up a base foundation of just a better generation that's coming up every time you can do that. So it's almost like I feel like a little obligation to where maybe I have this very unique opportunity. I have the ability to experience all this space stuff, putting cool things in space and telling all these stories, and people like to listen to it. So I try to do that in a way that makes sense to people. Don't overcomplicate things. We don't have to get into the numbers and the math behind why things work, but explain it to me like I'm 5. Right. So I think that's what the whole podcast is about. And then there's always the fun stuff to talk about, right? There's the conspiracy theories that go on around space. There's the
flat Earth.
Yeah, flat Earth.
Did we go to the moon?
Did we go to the moon?
Did we?
We did, definitely. Multiple times. So yeah, did we go to the moon? And there's always like cool space news now, right? There's the 3I Atlas comet that's coming through our solar system relatively soon. You not hear about the 3I Atlas?
There's a comet?
Yeah.
How close is it coming?
Really close, man.
What's really close? Really space close, or like
really space close?
Okay.
Yeah. So 3I Atlas comet is going to be the third recorded interstellar object to enter our solar system. There was a comet, kind of famous comet.
Oumuamua? I know Oumuamua.
So this is very similar to that. It's coming from a region of space. We call it interstellar because it's outside of our solar system. So, you know, what I do, putting things in space, a lot of those things are for looking at like near Earth asteroids and different things that are in our local environment. It's really, really hard to see things that are outside of our environment because space is dark and space is really big. So you're looking for like literal needles in haystacks. Every once in a while, something comes whizzing pretty close. You have this 3I Atlas comet that's heading our way. It's going to pass like between us and Mars on the opposite side of the sun of us. So, you know, not going to impact Earth or anything like that. No need to get into the doomsday bunkers or anything like that. But it is going to be a super interesting, like, stellar event to witness because this is only the third time that we've had like telescopes in space and we can see this, right?
Would it be visible from here? Well, if it's on the other side,
yeah, it's not really going to be visible without like high powered telescopes and stuff like that.
But we'll have pictures though.
We'll definitely get pictures of it. You know, part of the thing right now is like people are saying, well, we have this brand new telescope, the James Webb. Yeah, it's super powerful, incredible telescope. Again, the technology and the building blocks that you have to build, the optics engineer, the manufacturing of like how do you make a mirror that can image space quality hundreds of light years away. Incredible telescope. One of my favorite things to talk about in space. But people are saying like, well, let's just point the James Webb telescope right at it and look at it and get high quality images.
Right.
You can't.
Why?
Because the way the James Webb telescope works, a very simple way. I'm not an expert on James Webb, so please forgive me if there's any experts watching. But there's a few concepts to understand. So one of the concepts is that heat is the average motion of a particle in a system. What that means is if you have a mirror and it's sitting at room temperature, even though we can't see it, there's little atoms vibrating on that mirror because it has some heat associated with it. James Webb telescope, in order to image extremely precise photos of things extremely far away, those mirrors and all of the instruments that are on there have to be cooled to like 4 Kelvin. So like 4 degrees above absolute zero.
That's what I said, near absolute zero.
Yeah. So like super, super cold. So it has this huge sunshade that it puts up and it blocks all of the heat and radiation from getting to the mirrors to heat it up. And it has special instruments on it that keep it cold and does all this stuff. And if it was to get hot, you could damage the instruments, but also the image quality would just go to nothing. Like you wouldn't get good image quality because the mirror would be vibrating ever so slightly. Unfortunately, the comet is going to pass between us and the sun. So we have to turn the James Webb telescope
to look at the sun. So you functionally can't even use the James Webb telescope to look at the sun. It has to always look into deep space.
It's always looking into deep space. That's correct. So that's one problem that you have on like why we can't get like just point the James Webb telescope at it and look at it and stuff. There's some, we're going to do our best as the aerospace community to get pictures of this thing. I guarantee you we're going to get good pictures of this thing.
Right.
I've heard that there's, possibly like, since it's going to pass on the other side where Mars is at, we do have like orbiters around Mars that are taking pictures of its surface.
We could turn them.
Maybe we could turn around those orbiters, and as it's passing, we could try to get good pictures of it along the way. And all kinds of other, there's so many people that are working on this right now to say like, how can we get good pictures? How can we get good data? And we are getting good data from it. There's people who are tracking it. There's special instruments that are made for tracking anything in our solar system that enters it and, get data that says like, what color is it? What composition is that thing made of, and all that stuff. So we have very good instruments that are looking at all that stuff. And
when is it supposed to be coming by?
It's like October. I don't remember the exact.
Of this year?
Yeah. It's a couple weeks from now.
Oh, I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna be there.
As it gets closer, I'm sure it'll be more prevalent in the news cycle, and people will be posting images that NASA or other companies release of it and stuff like that. But to bring it all back home, I think it's those kind of things, talking like these conversations that we can have about space objects, and not get too deep into the weeds of like what does it mean to do space imaging and things like that, and just try and break it down super simple as to like, here's what it is, here's what it's doing. Do the experts worry about it? Do the experts think that this is behaving erratically or something, or is it what we predict is going to happen? And I think that the podcast that I want to put together and continue is focused around those kind of conversations.
Your next episode got to be about the 3 atlas.
It's got to be soon.
It's got to be soon.
It's got to be soon.
you got to have it out, man.
That's right.
Man, thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been better than I even imagined. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, fantastic host. And anytime you want to have me back, just let me know.
We'll have you back for sure.
Okay.
Or at least you can have me back. I could be a guest on your podcast.
Let's do it.
We could do that tandem that Neil deGrasse Tyson and his.
I love that.
For a quick,
I love Neil and Chuck.
I could be comedy relief.
I love that.
Yeah. So we could definitely do that. I definitely want to. I'd love to text you around the time of the
for sure.
The meteor. Is it a meteor?
Asteroid.
Yeah. Asteroid. Mm-hmm. What's the difference again?
The difference is the composition that it's made up of.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Of course, man. It's a pleasure as always.
Matthew Melerine. Catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this conversation resonated with you, there's a lot more where that came from. We've got stories from healthcare providers, healers, innovators of various industries, and people doing work that truly matters, each one bringing something very different to the table. Feel free to check out another episode and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you know someone who would enjoy or needs to hear this, share it with them as well. I'm Ugo Ezema, and this is The Last Zebra. I'll see you on the next one.